Michael, why did you move your family to Idaho?
Yeah, so this is a story and topic that I love to talk about because it's been so influential in our family, so influential on so many areas in our lives. For each one of us has in my opinion, benefited. We had no intention of moving to Idaho, probably 3 years prior to us actually pulling the plug. And that was mostly due to we had some friends that moved out. He was from Idaho, moved out for college to California.
Okay.
And got to get to know them really well.
And what part of California were you from?
We were in Southern California, Santa Clarita.
Okay.
Near Magic Mountain, Masters College area. And he decided to take his family back to Idaho, go back home. It was just expensive financially. It just made more sense for them to move out here. He got a new job offer. And so we were like, you're going where? Like, why? What? Kind of typical question initially, 5 years ago.
Hillbilly town, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Five years ago, everybody was asking the same question. So we said, okay, perfect. And we came out and visited them just because we were just, wanted to see what where they were living, get to,
Okay.
important to us. And we came and visited probably 4 or 5 times in like a 3-year period. On every time we came out, there was just something different. We fell more and more in love with it.
Did you know people here other than them, or you were coming to visit them?
No, just them pretty
Okay,
much.
cool.
Yeah. And every time we came, there was something different about the people. Like I said, they had a smile on their face. There was, one example and that I always remind myself is we were at a gas station, and in California gas stations, I always kind of had my head on a swivel because you never know, there's just a lot of crime and stuff that can happen.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just things that just as a California resident, you're just kind of a sitting duck.
Right.
And so
when your girls are little at this point.
Yeah, exactly. They're young. And so we were sitting there, and a guy got out of his car, and there was military personnel dressed in his fatigues walking into the gas station. And the guy got out like,
I've been an agent here for the last 7 years. I'd love to use my local knowledge and expertise to help you make a plan to find the perfect home here in the Treasure Valley. If that's you and you're thinking of making that move, find my information down below, get a hold of me. I'd love to meet you and help you with your move to Idaho.
intentionally, he was just sitting in his car, got out, said, "Hey, thank you for your service."
Yeah.
And waved. And the guy said, "Hey, it's an honor, my pleasure." The guy got back in his car, and I was just like blew me away. Like this is I've never seen this before, and it just invigorated me to be like, this is where I want to live. This is where I want my kids to grow up. Like just appreciation for military, appreciation for what you've done, and then the response of that's an honor.
Yeah.
And that just kind of like
just the whole interaction.
Yeah, like babe, this is different out here. This is not something that we're accustomed to.
So what would be the common type of gas? Or you said like your head's on a swivel, but like, I mean, what's the contrast to what you would normally experience in California?
Yeah, and not to say that nothing bad happens in Idaho, right? That's it's a given.
There's bad apples everywhere.
100%. But the difference being is that there's just you do feel more secure, and that's part of the gun laws out here. Just overall, people I think are looking out for each other.
Yeah.
And I think in California there's a lot of like, I just need to take care of myself. And so I don't feel there's as much of a community.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I totally agree. And growing up here, I feel like I almost took that for granted. And then the events of 2020 and 2021, all the riots and stuff, that kind of made me realize like how good I have it, because you got a picture of what these larger cities are like in different states are like, to where it's like, man, I actually got it pretty good here in Idaho. So,
well, and in the exact same way, when growing up and being born and raised California, I always thought everyone wants to move here. Like, I have it so good. I'm so blessed. Like, why would I ever leave?
Yeah.
This is where everybody wants to be. Until I went somewhere else.
Yeah.
And saw the lifestyle and be like, man, it's different. And just like you said, kind of take things for granted.
Yeah.
And not to say that California is not beautiful and there's great people there. There's offers a lot of stuff, but the negative outweighed the positive. And when I thought of the positive in Idaho, it just checked all the boxes that were like, common ideology, just faith-wise, financially. There were so many different things that checked the boxes.
Yeah.
That we then started. It took about a year to kind of figure out how I was going to do the commute and what it looked like being kind of the first of our family and friends, other than our friends that moved out before, which was extremely helpful.
Yeah, I bet. Gave you a little roadmap of
100%. Yeah, they're awesome. And so that it gave us time to kind of figure out how we were going to plan for the move. So once we did that, people asked like, hey, would you ever move back? And 100% no, this is, we're super grateful for.
Why wouldn't you move back? Because I mean, you said you grew up in California. Something that I always think about is like, obviously like I grew up in Boise and a lot of it's nostalgia and home for me. And if I found somewhere else that I liked more, I do feel like I would still have kind of a pull back just because it's home. Yeah. So like, what is it for you that makes California now a non-negotiable? Like you won't
I think what we've seen with politics, with kind of the trajectory of the state overall, as far as what they're allowing to have happen to it, has really put a bitter taste in our mouth as far as Cindy and I.
Right.
And so we've kind of tasted the just freedom in so many different areas, financially as well, that to go back, it's expensive, and to go in an area that you feel safe,
right,
adds that much more expense.
Okay.
And so just those two things, not to say that there's not great people there, but it's great to visit.
Right.
We love to visit them. But to like resettle back over there would be difficult for us to do.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned just now, like you had, like it created a lot of financial freedom for you too. And I think that's like the common stereotype is that you come from California, you sell your house for $2 million and you buy here like this beautiful home for $600. Do you think, I mean, was that your situation of sorts or?
Yeah, I mean, we were very blessed where we lived in California, Santa Clarita. We loved our home. It's literally called Awesome Town, self-proclaimed Awesome Town.
Very cool.
So we loved our area. Just kind of saw that, and to be honest, it was when Governor Newsom took office that we're like, this is going to be a rude awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to get out before it was too late.
Oh, you saw the writing on the wall.
Kind of saw, how things are going. And financially wise, we were able to sell our house. And then what we were looking at out here, this is kind of before everybody moved out here. This is 2019.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's
right
perfect
before.
timing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we thought when we bought out here that we were too late as far as like what people had bought houses for in the past. We're like, oh my gosh, we're late. And then looking back now, we're so grateful we came when we did. But when we ended up buying our house out here, it was great because I did feel I didn't have to work as much. Over time, didn't feel house poor. Right. And I could really take advantage of the time off and do my schedule the way that was beneficial to where I maximized the amount of time at home with the family.
Right. And I want to ask you on like the work stuff, but before I go there, I'm kind of curious, like, because I mean, obviously 2019, if everyone could go back in time and buy a house in 2019, we'd buy like as many as we can.
Right.
But like speaking to people thinking about moving to Idaho from California or even other states like Washington, Seattle, Portland, I mean, they're kind of in the same boat. They can sell for quite a bit of money and buy cheaper here. Do you think it's too late for them now? Do you feel like they've missed the boat? Because I mean, prices have gone up significantly for Idaho recently. So
I don't think so. And the reason being is because we look at what we sold our house for in California, what we bought out here, and then recently we looked to see what our house, the person that bought our house recently sold, and so it was on the market.
Oh, wow.
And it sold for like $300,000 more than what we sold it for. So you can still buy it. Like, it's just kind of like
it's all just
shifted.
moved.
It's just shifted. Like everybody's like, it's not like the houses in California just completely dropped and all these went up.
Yeah.
Everybody's just kind of went up. And so if you've been in California for this time, your house is probably, the equity has gone up.
Yeah.
And you could probably afford something in Idaho.
Right.
It's if you, I think the situation I'm in, where I still actually work in California and didn't take a pay cut to come to Idaho, was obviously
that's a life hack.
It's a blessing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So what do you do for work then that you're able to kind of make that your schedule?
So I'm a firefighter for the fire department in LA. And so I'm able to kind of work my schedule based on, and it helps with other people that live out of state as well.
Do you do like forest? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you do like forest fires or like residential, commercial stuff? Or?
I'm municipal.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah. So I'm a firefighter paramedic.
Okay.
And so I work for a municipal city that 18 years. And so I've kind of set myself where it's like, all right, I'm ready to just kind of do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But my goal is to spend as much time at home as possible.
Oh yeah.
And so
that's all of our goal, right?
Right. And so that's been a blessing, and we were able to sell our house, and the rates were so good back then that right before COVID we were able to refinance and buy a rental property.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that house provided 2 homes out here.
That's amazing.
Passive income.
Yeah.
And really helped us through the COVID season. I was put off, suspended for not getting the vaccine.
No way.
And so for a year, I was employed, but I was suspended. So I was not getting paid at the time.
I'm curious, what did that look like for them being like, oh, actually COVID isn't as bad as we thought. You can come back. Like, what was that conversation like?
Is not fully dealt with yet. So a lot of people are like, oh man, that's crazy. I'm glad you're back, because I was brought back. And I'm grateful for that. But during that time, having that passive income for the rental, just seeing how God provided, 100% helped me in just sustaining.
Seriously.
And so if I was in California and didn't have and was suspended then and hadn't moved to Idaho, I'd be in big trouble.
Oh yeah. And you're almost in a situation where you're forced to get this vaccine just for the income. Yeah.
Right.
That's insane.
There's a lot of people that said, looking back and I know there's Monday morning quarterback and all that stuff. I totally get it.
Right.
And in no way was I saying, you shouldn't get it. I just wanted the option.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
my mom she's a nurse, and she was in the situation too, where she's traveling nurse. She's dependent on her income, just a single gal.
Yeah.
And she was in a situation where either I get this or I'm out of a job. And I mean, at that point you kind of have to, like, your hands are tied. Yeah. So it's a really unfortunate situation.
It was obviously a very difficult situation. It got me into real estate. And so, and that was another area that's just kind of like, wow, this is, to look back in a situation, it's like you're just in this trial of like unknown, like God can provide. And looking back, I'm like, man, just the provision that he gave all the way to like making the decision to move to Idaho was amazing. Yeah. And it got me to the point that if I get fired for this and I have to start over in Idaho, then I had such a calm peace about it that only comes from him, that I was like, well, we'll make it work, because financially we hadn't stretched ourselves like we had in California. Yeah. And so I felt that if I needed to pick up and do something else, and I could pick up and do something else, and real estate came knocking at the door and gave me an opportunity and provided for me during that year. And so now it's, those are all the things that Idaho to me is just, it's not people stepping on each other to knock people down. Out here, it's like, no, how can we help? What's the situation you're in, and how can we help you? Yeah. And that's the overall.
Something I always wonder, because sometimes I think, like, obviously we go to the same church, we run in a lot of the same circles. And I wonder if it's just because of the people you surround yourself with, that's your impression. Because I know, like we said earlier, there's a bad apple in every town.
Sure.
And I mean, I know people who run in circles where not everyone is supportive or things like that. So, I mean, I wonder that myself is like, do I just have an unrealistic view of what Idaho is?
Rosy glasses.
Because of the people I choose to spend time with.
Yeah.
But at least for me, really, like even just getting out of our little office space here, you take a right onto Overland Road. I mean, I've been at this location for now like almost a year, like 8 months or 9 months or something, and not once when I turn onto that really busy road when it's usually really busy traffic, have I had to really wait for someone to let me in. Like I usually just pull up there, and the first car that's just waiting at the red light says, "Yeah, you can go on in."
Yeah.
Like, and that's just, I mean, it's like you said with the gas station thing and the soldier veteran. That's one of the things for me that I see is just like traffic. People are just kind. Now it's getting worse.
It's getting worse,
obviously, but. Another guest we had on was saying that his thing that he saw was that people put their shopping carts where they go. Whereas like he said, he's from LA and he says their shopping carts are literally everywhere.
Yes.
Which I can't even imagine. Like there's times when I go shopping and I'm like, oh, I'm too busy. I'm in a hurry. And it's like, no, I can't. Like there's people here. They'll see me leave my cart. I got to go put it away. Like
that peer pressure.
It's like positive
peer
social pressure. Yeah. Yeah.
No, and to say, I think with the influx of the left coast is whatever they call it.
Left coast.
Yeah. That awesome. Influx of refugees, I would say, come here. They still have, and I still have tendencies of having kind of like that California mentality, rat race type of thing. Right. And I had to really change my thinking just in driving. You know, in California, if you leave any space, you're going to have 9 million cars that are going to just force their way in. And so out here, I'd have my normal driving space.
Yeah.
And you'd literally see, and we'd be driving on a curvy road somewhere, a country road, and I would just be in my normal, comfortable distance.
Yeah.
And Sydney would be like, "Hey, baby, you can step back a little bit, like give them some space," because you'd see them look in the rearview mirror, you know, nice
like a few
old
times,
guy, nice old guy looking in the rearview mirror, and you could kind of see him like, oh gosh, he's got to get somewhere, and he would pull over to the side and let me go, and I'm like, oh, hope everything's okay for him, you know, like no clue that he's like worried that I need to get where I need to be, and he's like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be that close.
Right. Well, I didn't even think about that because, I imagine there is like, if it's like a survivor mentality on the road,
100%.
you have to force your way in if you're going to get anywhere.
Totally.
Whereas here, I mean, I think it's a mentality of like everyone does like the zipper thing. Like, okay, I let one person in, so I'm off the hook for letting anyone else in.
Yes.
The person behind me can let someone in.
Right.
Like
we're all going to make it work. We're all going to get where they need to go.
Yeah. And I feel like that system usually works pretty well. And it seems like that's kind of the general understanding, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah. Interesting. So, I mean, I guess another question I'm curious about, because it varies person to person. I think I know, but what, if you could put it down to like, do you and Cindy remember the specific moment when you're like, okay, we gotta get out of here? Like you mentioned Gavin Newsom getting elected, but was that the epitome of the tipping point, or?
So I think the final straw for us was, is it going to work for me to be able to commute? And that was the unknown for us.
How often do you commute?
So I do try and stick to a work 6 off 12 schedule.
Okay.
So I'll fly out, I'll work 6 straight, and then I come home for 12. So it's a round trip flight every 18 days.
Okay.
That's how it works out.
Yeah.
So that was the tough part. And we met with another firefighter's wife who's a realtor out here, just to like see, is this even a possibility?
Yeah.
And we ended up having dinner with her, and she's like, I'm actually meeting with another client. And that client was a buddy from my same department. They were also looking in do the same thing.
Yeah.
And when we saw each other, like, are you kidding me? Like, you're looking to move out here? And like, yes.
That's
like,
crazy.
Okay.
So you
we
worked
were able to-
together and you met up.
No clue
in
we were
Boise?
both. Yes, no
That
clue
is
we were
funny.
both out there. No clue we were meeting with the same person.
That is so
and
funny.
we talked, and then while we were sitting there, there was another table of about 6 couples that were also retired and a couple active fire family.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh," we're like, "We know them too." And it 100% gave my wife
Yeah.
just that piece of like, "Oh my gosh, there's others out here." And then they came over and gave her reassurance, like, this is a fire family.
Like it's obviously doable.
When he's in town, or when he's out of town and working, we got your back.
Yeah.
And so that kind of that trip when we met with them and then flew home and then literally flew into LAX, and there was instant anxiety from horns honking, people flipping each other off, homeless lined up inside the terminals, like, and we hadn't realized that's what was missing. You know, you fly into Boise, it's beautiful, quiet, small, in and out airport. We hadn't dealt with graffiti. We didn't see any.
Yeah.
It was just like we didn't realize what was missing until we got back home and we're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like instant anxiety.
I imagine you just kind of get used to it after a while.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we had instant anxiety, and both of us on the drive home were just like, just had a peace at that. That was
Yeah,
the
it's the
that
right
was the trip.
decision.
Just like, all right, let's start moving forward. We're gonna start walking through the doors, see if this happens, and if God closes them, He closes them. If He opens them, we're gonna just keep walking through.
Yeah. How did the girls react to the news, or were they kind of a part of the process?
Yeah,
or?
no, we had discussed, and every time we went, they would come with us, and they were definitely, they loved it, and they were at a time like 9, 10, 11,
Okay,
where they
yeah.
weren't at that stage of
Super strong friendships. And
correct.
stuff. Okay, yeah.
And we had homeschooled throughout, so there wasn't like this like school bond of like I have to be with my school friends, and so
Do you guys
handled it
still
great.
homeschool?
We have one daughter left that's she's a senior this year. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I knew
Yeah.
that. I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So will be done at the end of this year. And so
Awesome.
it was thankfully, graciously, God gave them the same heart as far as that we didn't have to fight any of them not wanting to be here. And
That's
we've asked
cool.
them multiple times since they've been here, like, is there things that you do you wish we would have stayed? And they're like, no, we love it here. Do they miss things? Do they miss people? Yes.
Oh yeah, sure.
They miss beach. They miss,
Oh yeah, the beach.
amusement parks.
I've never lived on the beach, and I miss the beach. So.
Yeah, right.
All the time.
So there's obviously things that they miss. They miss people, but they're very grateful to be in Idaho.
Cool.
And I think part of that was just like the freedom part of it.
Cool. Well, and obviously one of the bigger fears of like locals, and like you hear it all the time, is like Californians and really like the left coast, Washington and Oregon, that they're changing Idaho, they're changing Boise. And I don't know if you've seen the election results, but Boise was actually only 10. The Democrats and Republicans were only split by 10%, which is, I think, I don't actually know if this is a factual stat, but I think it's one of the closest in history. Since in terms of how close Boise is to just flipping blue.
Right.
What do you think the future looks like for Idaho? Well, obviously Idaho's very red as a state, but with Boise, I mean, we're starting to see that change, and even with our mayor and gay pride flags lining the downtown streets and things like that.
I think there's definite progressive movement. I think Boise in and of itself is a target from liberal side that is wants to try and do what they did to Colorado. I think we're kind of on that list.
Yeah.
To try and change. I think every large city is going to have a high liberal count.
Oh yeah, that's how I feel too.
That's just how big cities are. I truly do hope that just the overall like kindness and demeanor of conservatives will not change. Not necessarily going to change, but I think make an effect on the people that are here.
Yeah. Well, that's
and I say kind of kill with kindness, right?
Yeah.
You just if they have nothing to complain about, if they have nothing to want to change, and they enjoy all the things that Idaho provides,
right?
There's only so much you can change as far as politics. You know, there's some people that just can't.
Yeah,
they're not going to change, right?
Right.
And there's only so much you can do about it. But I do hope that it stays conservative, and I think the country as a whole kind of saw, and hopefully if there's a upward overall rise in just American pride.
Yeah.
That'll help.
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of that. Obviously, I'm wearing the team colors right now, but I wonder too, because obviously Californians and they carry everything bad that's wrong with Idaho right now. They're all it's being blamed on people from California or Oregon and Washington. What was your experience when you moved here? Like, have you gotten a lot of that backlash or I don't want to say the term hate because I don't think it's hate.
No, I know
I
what
think
you're
it's
saying.
just disgruntledness.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a story. The first day we moved out here, we still had our California plates on, and I was turning from State onto Eagle and was going too slow for the person behind me. Because I was just like, oh my gosh, we're crossing over a river right now, like in the middle of town. Like I was just like kind of in awe.
Taking in the sights.
Yeah, taking the sights. And I admittedly probably was going slower than I should have been making a left, but I got honked at and flipped off and told, go back to California. And so at that point, I told
leaning out the window yelling.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I said, okay, I get it. Totally understand. Probably a native that just doesn't want us here.
Right.
But babe, I'm going to head over to the DMV and get our plates switched out so that it,
right. Yeah.
I don't have a target on my back.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think has been so many Californians and other people that have come here for the right reasons.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that hopefully the Idaho way, they're here for a reason. And that's because they like the Idaho, they like the conservative, they like the more ideological things that Idaho provides.
Well, and that's what it should be. I mean, it's like the reason you moved here is because it's like you want to be around like-minded people.
Right.
And the reason people move to California is because of their policies. And then, I think that they're ridiculous, but not to someone who wants to live there. They think it makes sense to them. So I think that's the attitude that, well, it's not like, oh, are you a native or are you a transplant? Like, it's like, do we agree about these types of key moral issues?
Correct.
And that should be the measuring stick.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy freedom?
Exactly.
Yes. Because the freedom is so, you can be free and have different ideological ideas, political ideas. But if you enjoy being free, that's going to weed out a lot of people because
that's a simple way to put it.
It's just, in my opinion, the liberal states are such a welfare state that it's like, let the government take care of you.
Yeah.
And you need us, and therefore you have to vote for us in order for these programs to continue. Yeah. It's just a machine that just feeds itself, and it doesn't give people opportunity to create and to provide for themselves and have that just sense of work ethic. It's just kind of it's gratifying when you are able to enjoy where you live and work and have the freedom to do what you want.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I asked that question about like what your experience was moving here is because, you see a lot of like on YouTube and things, you see a lot of headlines of like, we don't want you here or things like that, just like clickbaity stuff. But I wonder what the real experience is for people because I know how I feel that it's like, just like if you see, if you're going to keep Idaho, and like I always say, like, Boise's known for being a kind place. At least that's what it's long been known for. And so I say, like, let's keep Boise kind. If you're on the same page, absolutely, come on in. Like, more the merrier. But what would you say to those people that would it be enough for you to reconsider your move if you're just constantly like, oh, you're from California, then like F you and middle finger and all that?
Yeah, I mean,
has it been that bad, I guess?
No, no, and to be honest, that you learn to not constantly bring up, oh well, in California this is how we did it. There's, I mean, you have that slogan also is like, we don't care how you did it in California. We don't care how you did it in Washington, right? That's kind of like another Idaho slogan.
Yeah.
And so you learn it's like, hey, just keep your mouth shut when it comes to that. And it's been easy for us because we enjoy the new way of life out here. It's just.
Are there things that you do feel like was done that makes more sense, like in California, or like there are things you're like, man, if they did it like this back where we were at home or something like that, it makes more sense to do that, apply that here?
Yeah. I think. I mean, there's so many. There's so many things that I don't miss about California that they're slow on some infrastructure stuff, but it's hard to plan for that. It takes years
well,
and
the
years.
Demand that's been had.
Right.
No,
so those are the
the
frustrations of lack of infrastructure in the Boise area has been a negative for some people. They're like, man, if they would have only done it this way, this is how we did in California, as far as how they planned things out. But California is always growing, or was always growing.
Yeah.
And so they would always have this like plan. If you're going to do this, then you have to have this plan set up. And I think California or Idaho wasn't ready for the amount of influx.
And it's really only been like maybe 10, 15 years that Idaho's been growing at this pace.
Right.
And my neighbor friend, he was on the other day, he was saying that he basically he grew up in California since like the 60s and stuff, and he basically had seen it growing from like a Boise size to like a metropolis now. So I mean, they've had 60 years to kind of get things organized and infrastructure and everything. So that's how I look at it too. It's like, it's a bummer. Traffic isn't the greatest certain times of the day, but
it's so subjective.
It's a small price to pay, and you can schedule your day accordingly.
Yeah. My girls, just to give a story on that, my girls recently went to visit some cousins, and they did a Disneyland trip, just the four of them, which was the first time they've ever done that. And my oldest daughter was driving. She's like, I used to think, Idaho traffic was bad because where she got her license. There's the only place she's really known to drive. And she went out there, and she's like the most stressful time of my life. Like a couple hours of trying to get to Disneyland. Yeah. And she's like, now I get it. Like,
well, that's how it is going to Portland too. Like every time we go to the beach, it's like, all right, kids quiet, turn the music off. I got to be full focus on like, got to get my exit.
turn the volume down so I can see where the sign is.
I can't read with the volume on.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective. It's all subjective. Could be way worse. I know the natives out here is like, the traffic is horrible. It didn't used to be this way. Totally get it. Yeah. I understand. It's not fun when something changes like that, but things are going to change throughout life. There's going to have ups and downs. Pendulum's going to swing one way or the other. Yeah. Thankfully, politically, the pendulum has swung back, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful. I'm like, man, January 20th needs to be some kind of holiday.
Yes,
like a watch party.
I think people are like ready to get back on track, and it's kind of lit national pride.
Yeah, I saw a reel the other day though that was talking about how we need to like someone talking about how like we need to be praying for Donald Trump because he's got a target on his back. Obviously, there's 2 actual assassination attempts and then one failed. And I don't know, I've just been feeling that more than ever. I was telling Liz last night, it's like we need to make sure to be praying for him because he's shaking some things up in a big way. He's messing up a lot of people's plans. Yeah. So no, he's causing a wrinkle in a lot of, like you said, a lot of people's plans. Worst job in the world for sure is Secret Service, in charge of Secret Service right now. I could not even imagine.
I can't even imagine.
He hasn't chosen yet, right?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that process is, but but most stressful job for sure.
I can't even imagine what that'd be like. No. But as you're telling your story, which I haven't asked your story yet, so it's kind of cool to hear how it all played out and everything. You think about kind of like what the message was this last Sunday at church, how it's like you see God's hand through everything, even though like obviously in the moment it doesn't feel like there's a plan. Right. But now looking back 5 years later, it's like, oh man, you set this up so perfectly to
Yeah.
work out. And like, you knew I was going to lose my job for a minute there.
Right.
And it's really cool to see
It's
how faithful.
100%. And I've learned from it in that God's going to provide. Like
Yeah.
that whole time was
My lesson as a realtor, same thing. It's like you go through peaks and valleys.
100%.
God provides.
Exactly. And I think the doors just kept opening. And in someone that I listened to a podcast, and it was a John MacArthur podcast, and he was talking about, how do you know what God's will is for your life and decisions and, things that are
Hard question.
Like, how do you know what to do? And one of his points or responses was, if I have two decisions to make and either one is not unbiblical, the one that I'm going to have to trust him more has always been a blessing.
Yeah.
Right. So the one that it's like, am I going to have to lean on him? Because I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but if it's going to cause me to lean more on him and trust him more, I've never been not blessed in that situation.
Yeah.
It's always opened doors and just provided in ways that I never thought they would provide. And so that was always I was listening to that during that time I was off mowing lawns, and I'm like, man,
Dude, mowing lawns is the best time to think and get clear.
I've
like life planning while you mow a lawn.
I have solved a lot of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm chuckling as you say that, because that's usually my metric too, is like, if I have two decisions, usually the one I really, really don't want to do because it makes me uncomfortable or something, that's probably the right choice. Yeah.
It's hard to do. But
yeah, it is. Yeah. But cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Like, it's really helpful. And my hope is that people that are kind of in your same shoes that you were in 5 years ago will watch this and kind of get some sort of peace or
I think
confirmation from it.
And I think, a lot of our stories, it's not for everybody, right? Like you don't just say like, no, you just do it blindly and come out here. It's going to be better for everybody that comes out here. Yeah. That's not the case, right? It takes a lot of thought, it takes a lot of process. But if it is one of those things, it's just kind of that pebble in your shoe. You're like, do I do it or do I not? See where God takes it. Right. See what you can do. Go out there and try it out and see where he takes it. And if he closes doors, he closes doors.
When you talk to people and you ask questions and meeting up with that realtor gal or did you have a lot of conversations with coworkers to kind of say, or I mean, probably after the fact? Yeah, after you saw that.
So there was a couple at the station I work with that they're like, oh yeah, I'm an out-of-stater. You're just kind of known as an out-of-stater. Yeah. And I'd be like, man, how long have you been doing it? I've been doing it like 9 years. And I'm like, man, how is it? And he's like, best decision. Everybody I talked to was like, no, best decision I ever made. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
What were the other states like where our people are out-of-staters from?
Oh yeah, we have like Texas, Tennessee,
oh, yeah, of course.
Montana.
Tennessee, that's actually quite a ways.
Tennessee, yeah, there's a lot of people that move out of Tennessee. We have one in Alaska. We have one actually out of the country. I think it's Spain.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I wouldn't suggest that's not a normal out-of-state. Right. Arizona, Utah. It's literally, I think we have around 400 to 500 members that live out of state in our department. So I think word got out, especially during COVID. And so that opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people. And there's the trendsetters that started off, the settlers, that kind of like figured out the plan. And then now people are kind of adjusting to it as needed. But the goal for us was to have more time with family and not feel like I had to work so much in order to live in a nice area so that our children were safe and healthy. Just kind of, we can have all that healthy and safe a lot cheaper and a lot less stress.
Well, and I imagine the cost of living being so much less.
Right. No, there was a huge difference in insurance, in car registration, basically in every aspect. Everything was cheaper. Yeah. So it was like, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Cool, man.
So, it's been good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's good to talk. These discussions are always fun to talk about.